Last night, in a heated game against the Rockets, it was the point of attack defense and aggressive blitzing that they employed to make sure that Steph never saw the ball that left him with only 3 points and a Warriors team that just couldn't get buckets when they needed to. But even though it was a frustrating loss, there's a lot the Warriors can learn from how the Rockets played them defensively that can help them if they face the Rockets or any of this type of coverage in the playoffs. If they can make the necessary adjustments to punish the Rockets' aggressive coverage, that series might not be that much of a problem. Let's review. I want to start out by covering what exactly the Rockets were doing last night to make life so difficult for Steph and the Warriors. It starts out with blitzes. As GP2 comes to set this high ball screen, pay attention to how aggressive VanVleet and Sengun are, as they're not really going to even let Steph get past the logo. It takes an underhand toss for him to even get the ball to Podziemski. In this next clip, the Rockets are already being aggressive off this Hield ball screen. I think it's worth noting that even when Buddy Hield sets the screen, they're still more concerned about Steph and willing to double, even though Hield could theoretically pop out here and take a three himself. But after Steph takes that three, which is a pretty tough shot, the Warriors are going to try and flow into another action, a handoff between Looney and Steph. Just watch how aggressive the Rockets are on this. Watch as Steven Adams and Dillon Brooks immediately flood Curry. They're being super handsy, super aggressive, and they ultimately strip Steph of the ball. Just an example of really aggressive defense from the Rockets last night. Now in this example, Steph is going to get this screen from Podziemski, presumably to try and free himself, and he ends up trying to split the defense. He tries to go between Amen Thompson and Jalen Green. But let's look at how handsy Amen is with that dig as he gets Steph's dribble dislodged. The Rockets were playing super fast, handsy perimeter defenders like Jalen Green, like Amen Thompson on Steph all night, which made it really difficult for him to get any leeway. It's not even that Jalen Green, for example, is some super exceptional perimeter defender, but he's athletic, he's fast, and when he tries, he can really be disruptive to a guy like Steph. Now, I also wanted to highlight this interesting example because the refs were letting a lot of contacts pass last night. We don't usually cover potential fouls on this channel, but just look at how VanVleet is grabbing Steph before he tries to go around this screen from Looney. In my eyes, that's 100% a foul, and obviously we wish it was called. But it's also worth noting that Looney doesn't really get any contact on this screen at all, and the Warriors weren't really doing a great job of getting contact on screens, which allows VanVleet to come and contest that shot. Steph had a really difficult shooting night, in part because all of the pressure he was feeling, not only around ball screens, but also to shoot, especially late in the game. Let's look at the end of the fourth quarter nearly, how Steph just has to pull it off this double from Amen and Dillon Brooks. An ill-advised shot. Even though Steph is an exceptional shooter, it's still tough to take shots when you have aggressive guards in your face. Now, let's talk about what the Warriors can do about it. They employed a few counters last night, and I think that in a future playoff series, they'll have to look to more of these things. The first one is just slipping screens. The Warriors already do this. I'm not really concerned about this in future games. As GP2 comes to set this high ball screen, watch the aggressive coverage. Sengun, Amen Thompson immediately blitzing, immediately aggressively in his space. Just look at how they're basically giving him no space, without fouling, of course. But the thing to do here, if you're GP2, whoever's setting the screen, is just to immediately slip into this open space. Because of the fact that you have Buddy, Jalen Green isn't willing to make a complete strong side rotation, and as a result, GP2 is able to put the ball up. Good slip from GP2. Now in this example, let's look at the defense that the Rockets are playing. Jalen Green is top blocking Steph, which means that they're not going to try and allow him to use any of the down screens or allow him to work in any actions. Because of that, he has to make this wild wide receiver-like catch at the baseline, but of course he can't put the ball up. So they're naturally going to flow into this corner where Kuminga's not going to take the shot, gives it to Steph, sets a screen, but because of the diligence of Jalen Green on these ball screens, we should give him credit. He did a great job last night. Steph's not able to get that shot, so instead, after this double from Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, he makes that pass to Jonathan Kuminga, which counters that top blocking and that aggressive defense and gets an easy bucket. You might have noticed in the first that the Warriors had a lot of easy buckets like that, honestly, throughout the entire game, partly because of the fact that whenever you employ that aggressive coverage on Steph Curry, whenever you employ those aggressive doubles, blitzes, there are going to be open shots. The gamble you are making is that you're willing to put 2 on Steph and force the Warriors to score 4 on 3 in the backside. Let's look at another example of pods setting a high ball screen. Again, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson gave Steph a lot of problems last night, going to pretty aggressively double off of this. But of course, what's the right action? You notice that pods immediately is just going to slip that, and Draymond's going to recognize that. He misses the layup, but great idea from pods. That's exactly what you have to do every single time Steph is treated like that. And I think then you just rely on your ability to finish and your ability to hit open threes, because inevitably those shots are what will be created. Finally, let's look at Jimmy slipping as he comes to set this screen. We've covered an action similar to this before. He gives the ball to Dre at the wing. Then he's going to come set this ball screen for Steph to run off of. Of course, what is the coverage? Sengun and VanVleet immediately running to Steph. Again, it's really exceptional that even with Jimmy Butler as your screener, Jimmy Butler as the scorer that you're leaving open, defenses don't care. They don't want Steph to have the ball. Ime says anyone but Steph, and as a result, Jimmy's just going to slip out of this double again. Dre's going to make a great delivery, and that's a really easy shot for Jimmy Butler. A really great counter to all of these actions. We've covered this a lot on this channel before. Whenever Steph gets doubled and you play 4 on 3, you have to take advantage. And with great operators out of that, like Draymond, like Jimmy, now Pods, I think the Warriors are going to be fine in series where they see this coverage more and more. It's worth noting that this is not the first time the Warriors have seen this type of Steph coverage. Now, the next thing that the Warriors can do, and that they tried to do a bit last night, is put Sengun in action. Alperen Sengun is an extremely gifted center, right? He's had a mini Jokic-like season, but he's still a defensive liability, especially if you can bring him out all the way to the perimeter on an island. So let's see how the Warriors do that right here. They have this empty side. They're going to try and involve Sengun. This starts out with this inverted screen from Steph to allow GP2 to get on the top side. Because of that, GP2 is now able to free Steph of the pesky Amen Thompson with another pin down, which gets Steph freed and able to get the ball. And now we have a trailing Amen and Steph, who essentially has a mountain of space against Alperen Sengun. And with this added momentum, he's able to work with that space and attack Sengun, ultimately give the ball to GP2, who can just back cut because Sengun doesn't want to leave Steph. Now, this is another example of how they tried to involve Sengun. This is a sideline out of bounds. It looks like the Warriors are going to run this sideline out of bounds in some sort of horns formation. That horns formation is eventually going to work where Looney is going to come set this screen to free Steph as Kuminga sets the down screen to free Looney. So it's some sort of horns or some sort of stagger. This gets Steph to the top. And of course, as soon as Steph catches that ball, he's going to get immediately covered. They don't want Steph in that action, which now means that it's time to get Sengun involved. The inbounder, GP2, is just going to run, immediately set this pin down to free Buddy. And now we have Buddy on a dropping Sengun, and he just lets that 3 fly and drains it. Now finally, let's look at the most simple example, and that's just involving Sengun in ball screens. The Warriors need to do this more if they're going to get the Rockets in the playoffs. They did it against Luka. Of course, the Rockets are going to do everything in their power to not even let Steph be the ball handler in these ball screens. But if he is, Kevon Looney or whoever is Sengun's man, come set the ball screen. As soon as you set the ball screen, if they double, you can pocket pass. And if not, you have Steph Curry downhill against a much slower-footed Sengun. And that's an easy layup. Now, the final thing the Warriors can do is let Steph's gravity pull defenders. Steph's movement is often the most key aspect of his offense, which enables his teams to succeed, as you see when Steph has like a great plus-minus, even if he doesn't score that much. Let's look at how it works to their advantage in this play. Starts off with this back screen to get Pods into the corner against Sengun. They're going to flow immediately here into a split action as you see Draymond get this positioning in the post. When he gets that positioning, watch this entire time how Steph has been moving. He's basically been doing this loop with Amen Thompson following him. And of course, this doesn't end up being the classic split action where Pods comes to set the elbow screen and someone flies off either direction. In this case, it's just Steph's twirl movement. Look at how both Amen and Dillon Brooks are paying attention to Steph, leaving a top-level all-star scorer, Jimmy Butler, wide open in the paint for a wide open dunk. That's the magic of Steph's gravity, and that's something you have to take advantage of whenever the Rockets' defensive scheme is just to absolutely hound Steph. And for this final example, I just thought it'd be funny to look at the hesitancy that Steph causes in transition. This is blurry, but Steph has two on him in transition. They're not even willing to get back and set their defense while Steph is on the other side of the court. Because of this hesitancy, there's someone free on the other end if you run fast enough, and in this case, it's GP2 who gets the touchdown for the Warriors. So the way the Rockets played the Warriors last night was nothing new, but I think after a few really good Steph games, it was honestly surprising to see Amen, Jalen Green, VanVleet be able to bother him so much. But I think if it's any solace for Warriors fans, know that the Warriors have dealt with these aggressive coverages on Steph for years. Their problem in the past few seasons has been that they haven't had the personnel to take advantage. But this year, and despite the loss last night, with Draymond, GP2, Pods playing at their highest level, and with a new secondary scorer in Jimmy Butler, I think come playoff time, especially against the Rockets, the Warriors likely have the answers. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you agree.